I like our new theme song.
I do too.
Do you like it?
Yeah.
I hope everybody else does too. A nice change from what we'd use that other one for 200 or 300. I don't know how many shows.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our show number 702. I'm Tom Eamon with Julia Vedekint here in the Studio B at the Beach Street Yacht Club. I trust you are well.
I am.
Any hot tips?
I'm getting ready to get ready for sailing season.
It's been a weird week since our last show.
It has.
Hasn't it?
Mm.
I like that. Yeah. Little jazzy as Rick
Yes.
Bannero checks in, as Alistair Murray and a bunch of others already on here. As we said, we're live from Studio B at the Beach Street Yacht Club. Julia, do you see back here, I got a new addition. You see that?
Yeah.
You see that?
Yes. Pemmican.
Pemmican. You know who that's from?
Somebody in Australia.
That is from Vice Commodore Harrington.
Wow.
Claire Harrington sent us a care package, so I had to move this around to get our. In fact, I don't know if Peter Stevenson's on yet, but Pedro, we got to have a new Crutonic corner here. This is too small now for all the stuff we're getting from the Fosey, Julia.
Oh.
Thank you to the Fosey for all they do to keep this thing going. Thank you to
And
you.
entertaining.
Huh?
And entertaining.
And entertaining. Don Lunabos is up in Sonoma. David James. Those are some nice 12 meters. Yeah, that footage, courtesy of the 12-meter yacht club, the 12-meter class. Gary Jobson, appreciate their support as well. Warren Schasser down in Brisbane and Oz. Paul Callahan, greetings from Newport, Rhode Island. Speaking of stalwart and cool New York Yacht Club members. Mm-hmm. Great song. Good afternoon from Davis Island, Florida, says Philip Laughin. Laugh-In. Remember the old television show?
Oh, yes.
Laugh-In. Show number 702, Friday the 12th of April. It is a Friday. Let's get on here because, I can't start the show without mentioning this. I know we all want to talk about sailing, not about world affairs, but we told you in October, when Hamas invaded Israel, that this was not going to be the end of it. It was going to go from bad to worse, and it has. We knew that Israel would retaliate. We told you after they retaliated that Iran would get involved in this, and now everybody is just waiting on pins and needles. I woke up this morning to this headline on CBS News. U.S. issues travel warning for Israel with Iran attack believed to be imminent, and fear Gaza war could spread. And you know then Israel's going to retaliate. The U.S. is going to back Israel after being wishy-washy. We hope they are. Yep. And the military-industrial complex
Wins again.
As we said back in bloody October, this is exactly how it would play out, and it is. And the Telegraph, just before he went to air, is telegraphing this headline: U.S. military moves forces to prepare for Iran attack on Israel. We are at war in the Middle East. It's not a good situation, but what is a good situation is all of you and the fact that we can get together twice a week here and talk about our beloved, I've used the word now.
Oh, yes.
Once, our beloved sport, right, Julia?
Yes, indeed.
Also, since our last show, if you're here in the States, everybody will, this was 30 years ago.
Yes, but on everybody's calendar.
This was 30 years ago. So this is this guy, O.J. Simpson. Those of you outside the States have probably heard from him. You probably saw the trial if you're of a certain age. And he was born here in San Francisco. Did you know that?
Of course.
Oh, okay. Well, you know everything.
No, in fact, I brought out an article for you to read about his whole background in San Francisco, which is really good.
I read it on Wikipedia, the same stuff. Potrero Hill, poor family in the tenements, as we used to say, in the public housing. He was in and out of trouble as a kid, but a hell of a big, strong guy and a great athlete. And he broke the NFL season, the single season rushing record back in '73, and then on and off every year for a bunch of years in the 70s, and he was a hero. And he then was a pitchman, very popular pitchman for many different products, including and especially Hertz, and he was running through airports. On business trips these days, you've got to make every minute and every dollar count, and OJ was running through the airports, jumping over the... It was unbelievable.
Yes.
It was unbelievable. So So this is that's 50 years ago, Steve, but then the big deal was 30 years ago, and this is that famous chase,
Yeah.
the most famous American ride, they say, since Paul Revere in 1994. So that's the 30 years I was referring to, when he was chased. He was in the backseat of that car, supposedly holding a gun to his, I can turn a little audio up, supposedly holding a gun to his head. He was supposed to turn himself in to the police that morning on the suspicion of having murdered his wife and her apparent boyfriend. And he's chased by the police on I-5 in L.A., and we all watched it, wondering what the hell was going to happen next.
Right.
And he did, in fact, go back to his mansion in Brentwood. The police surrounded him and finally did arrest him after he didn't turn himself in. And then there was the trial of the century. And that all happened on the 17th of June, 1994, 30 years ago this year. It's hard to believe.
Gosh, yes.
I used to have the same pair of gloves that OJ didn't fit. If they don't fit, you can't convict. Isn't that what Johnny, Cochran, was that his name? So Cochran. That went on. And then Fozzie sent me, Julia, this meme this morning.
Yes.
And I'm not a big fan of OJ. I don't know if he did it or not. He was acquitted, as you probably all know, in the trial, although most everybody in the country thinks he did it. This was the meme sent by Fozzie. I won't name who. That is the Ford Bronco DBA as a hearse, because OJ died, day before yesterday, was it? No, a couple days ago. Yesterday morning it was announced that he died. And so he was born in 1947 here in San Francisco, died this week. In where, Las Vegas? Is that where he died?
No.
Not sure where. Still had a few $1 million in his bank account, apparently, by all reports, even though he lost in the civil suit to the families, and he was supposed to pay millions to them, and he apparently only paid a few $100,000, and that was that. O.J. Simpson, 1947 to 2024. That's been the excitement here in the States this week, in addition to this terrible situation. And you got to feel sorry for the Israelis and the Palestinians and everybody else involved. But the Iranians, I'm sorry, I have no sympathy for the leadership in Iran. The people, of course, but bloody hell. Does he still own the Bronco? I don't know, Clark, but it's an interesting factoid that I saw in researching this little segment last night, is that after that chase, did you know this, Julia? After that chase of the Ford Bronco by the police, and that was in 94, that was a 93 Ford Bronco. In the next year, Ford's sales of the Bronco, particularly white, went up, skyrocketed. Everybody wanted an OJ Bronco.
Of course.
Croutonicism. Yeah. I'll tell you what's croutonic is that across the bay, this poor town over there, Oakland, which is a big town.
Yes.
And a big city, and it's got a lot of problems, crime and otherwise, and they now, because no one wants to fly into their airport because of the name, and because
they don't know where it is.
No, is that it?
Yeah.
Well, the reputation of the city is suspect, more so even than San Francisco.
But Oakland could be in Sacramento. I mean,
fair enough, and it's not like I was thinking. It's not like New York Kennedy and New York LaGuardia. You've got SFO, San Francisco, and then you got Oakland International across the bay. Well, 50 some odd percent, more than 50% of the population here in the Bay Area is closer to Oakland International Airport, OAK, than it is to SFO.
Right.
And it's a nice airport, too. I fly in and out of there on Southwest, going down to Balboa Yacht Club a fair bit, if I don't take Alaska. But now they want to rename themselves the San Francisco Bay Oakland International Airport. That's a mouthful.
Yes.
And we could do that as a correct or croutonic. Julia, do you think that's croutonic?
I do, but it explains what they're trying to do.
Yeah, it does. And I don't blame the airport, the Port Authority, and so on for wanting to wrap their arms around San Francisco. But that's got everybody's unit cojones in an uproar here in San Francisco, and it's only passed one reading. It's got to go through the second reading of the Port Commission or whoever decided that, City Council, I guess the Port Commission. And meanwhile, the city of San Francisco is about to sue them.
Of course.
Of course. Sue them. You can't use our name. Why don't they just rename the airports like LAX? Nobody calls that Los Angeles International Airport. They call it LAX, right?
And SFO and Oak.
And call it OAK and SFO.
Except that then nobody's going to know where Oakland is.
Well, who cares? Frankly. Okay,
Oakland
I
does.
said it. I said it. Sorry. Why don't they just rename it if Alameda International Airport? Clark Chapin's son, Billy, lives over there in Alameda, which is in the East Bay, and nice part of Oakland, actually. Okay, enough of what's gone on since our last show. The other thing that's gone on, I always think, oh, we'll have a relaxed Friday. We can talk about the Governor's Cup and Balboa Yacht Club. And then ETNZ, Emirates Team New Zealand, when I woke up this morning, I actually saw it last night, had revealed their new B3, their AC-75, which they will sail in this cup. Mm-hmm. Not only did they reveal it, did they wheel it out of their shed, and it had been on the cover of Night. It had been trucked some weeks ago from their build facility down to their shed there in Auckland, and after that, they've been working on it, getting it ready, adding the fittings and testing it and so on. Well, then they rolled it out this morning, Friday. It's Saturday down there now, of course. They revealed, launched, and splashed, and without apparently dockside load testing, or at least not much, they went sailing today, Friday. And on their first tack, it was a dry tack. They went from foil-borne to foil-borne, according to our longtime friend in FOZ, Richard Gladwell.
Yeah.
And we're going to cover this at some length here later in the show after you do the Gov Cup thing. It's 100 days now to the Governor's Cup, and that's our main feature today, and we'll get to that in due course. But before that, Julia,
yes.
What are we celebrating?
God only knows.
Today. There's a clue behind that lower third.
A hurricane.
Close. Well done. Close. What are we celebrating? This is, at least
Big
in
wind
this
day.
state, some would say it's the Tom Eamon Day, the Big Wind Day, Big Windbag Day.
Yep.
This is Big Wind Day in the USA. It's celebrated every year on April 12th. Do you know why?
Oh, no.
It's because on this day, in 1934, they recorded the windiest, the highest wind speed ever on the Earth's surface.
Oh, my goodness.
Big Wind Day is observed each year in the United States on April 12th. The day commemorates the recording of the highest natural wind gust. What's the difference? I was wondering when I cut and paste this. Natural wind gust versus, what's that mean? Something created by by a rocket engine or something?
Yeah, probably.
Natural wind gusts measured on the Earth's surface. It was on the afternoon of April 12, 1934, that winds blowing at 231 miles per hour, and we should have checked that in knots, were recorded by Mount Washington Observatory up in New Hampshire. Mount Washington is the highest peak in the northeastern United States at 6,288 feet. It is said to be the most notable, whatever that means, mountain east of the Mississippi River. While it is difficult to say if the day will receive strong winds as it did in 1934, one can still expect that it will be windy on Mount Washington. Mm-hmm. And to that end, we have checked it out. That's in case you're geographically challenged where New Hampshire is, between Maine and Vermont, up in New England, north of Massachusetts, north of Boston, and Newport, Rhode Island. Mm-hmm. Mount Washington Observatory, and that is what it looks like
today.
Well, that's a as they say, stock photo. That's a file photo. But here is what it looks like as we speak. It's a whiteout.
Yes.
It is snowing and raining. I guess it's snowing. That is live from up there. What time is it there? It's 16:16, so it's 4:16 in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. And before we went to air, I grabbed this off their website. There in the blue, the wind has ranged in the last the 10 minutes. Again, this is a couple hours old, but it was ranging between 50 and 80 something miles per hour. The strongest gust is that orange mark, and in the last 24 hours, it was 110. And currently, when I grabbed that screen grab a couple hours ago now, it was 71 and it's almost 72 miles per hour. A gentle breeze
Yes.
at Mount Washington as we speak. Now, 71 miles per hour, since we are not SailGP, that's 62.31 knots. And if we are SailGP, that's 150 and change kilometers per hour. 231 miles per hour, Steve Gruber informs us, is 201 knots, so over 200 knots. Rick Bannerow is saying natural is no Venturi effect from blogs. And gasbaggers like me, right?
Yeah.
It is very foggy up there in March and April, Julie Ahrens is saying. I think it can be.
She's climbed it.
She
twice.
has? Is that what she said?
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. It is very windy here in Rhode Island today. Josh Tozo is saying, happy National Big Wind Day. Oh, I see Julie's comment up above there.
Yeah.
I have climbed Mount Washington twice. I guess you can go up there, Julia, and Julie maybe did this. You can go up there and spend the night. They have bunks, and I don't know if it's a state park, a national park.
I wonder if that differs greatly from the high mountains and the West Coast.
No idea. But, you know, the class I love that can sustain and sail in 30-plus knots, a bit painful, but they can do it, and they do it all the time, is
Fins.
the fin. Well done, Julia. And there it is. We have a video from another Fozy. This is the Luca Devoti Training School, Training Academy for Fin Sailors and Beyond in Valencia back in 2016. In 30-plus knots, that's a Spanish sailor whose name escapes me. Having fun.
Yep.
And there was a whole fleet of these boats on that day in 2016. And with that video, we wish all of you a happy Big Wind Day.
Yes.
90 years since that incredible 231 mile per hour gust was recorded at Mount Washington, just a bit above 200 knots, according to Steve Gruber. And we're appreciative of Steve Gruber and all the rest of you who help us do this show, not only with content, but also with some money that you send in via Patreon. Thanks for your support. Become a patron, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. Give us $1 or $2 or more per month. Some of you give us $8 a month. Some of you give us a lot more.
Yes.
To help keep us on the air and keep our studio intact. We get soundproofing for the studio. I don't know, I pointed this out before, but that's from Rick Bannerow above you, Julia.
Yep.
Above the big picture window.
Right.
Nice day here. Windy here in San Francisco, too. And some back here behind me. There's some, I don't know if you can see those very well back behind me, but there are some back here on the wall behind me, too. Help soundproof the studio. We appreciate all of that. And we appreciate those of you who do support us as patrons.
Yes.
Very much indeed. Clark Chapin, I believe that if you're on top of Mount Washington, when the sun rises, you are the first thing in the USA that it hits on that day.
Oh.
Okay. It gets sporty above 30, James Frederick Bland. He would know. He's a fin sailor, and an OK dinghy sailor, and a weightlifter. Not blogs, buildings. I thought you were talking about bloggers, Rick Banner. Windy bloggers. And talk show hosts. Okay, Bravo Zulu. Bravo Zulu. Julia.
Yes.
We've been covering this regatta, and everybody likes to really start in earnest with some good sailing news and a good sailing video. And this is that BVI Spring Regatta and Festival. It's been fun to cover, and they just issued their wrap video. It's 5+ minutes long, but enjoy every second of it. It's terrific.
I think this is one of the greatest race courses in the world. You know, I got fond memories of being down here with my family on kind of cruising catamarans, and it's just a good vibe.
Great islands, awesome water, just like a giant playground. There's a lot of fun to be had.
Like they say, it's warm, it's beautiful.
We're looking forward to it. It's a great race village. It's nice and sandy. You can see the water. That's what we're here for. Every aspect of this regatta has been pretty awesome so far.
Today we're doing the Around Tortola race, which You get all the angles. It's always fun circumnavigating an island anyway. We're ready. We're excited. Let's get this thing going.
Salt Island and Ginger Island support, then to the finish. Race committee standing by.
I was sure that it'll be easier to clear you from my mind. Struggle with dusty corners that will fill with fatal bombs.
I hope we don't get a copyright strike. I don't know if this is copyrighted music or not, so I'm going to turn it down just in case it is, and just enjoy the video, enjoy the images, because it is a terrific regatta. Music is good. Yeah, I agree, Ted. But I don't know if it's copyrighted music. I didn't hear that when I scrabbled through the video to check it. And there we go.
2024. We had light winds today, but we have an amazing party on shore.
That doesn't sound like copyrighted music, but how would you know? Does look like they had fun, Julio,
Indeed.
on shore
Regatta, light air, drift fest, hot racing.
and the float.
Let's go.
Love to get-
If you like my body and you think I'm
This
bad,
guy's-
come on, baby, let me know.
He was in one of the other videos. I've been drinking Heineken 0.0 for NA. Their non-alcohol beer is pretty good. Heineken is not a sponsor today, although they'd be welcome to if they want to contact us.
Yes, please.
Nemo really excels in these conditions, so it was fortunate for us the wind stayed. It just worked out. Good days.
This week we've got more firsts than we have anything else, so yeah, it's been fantastic.
It's really special. I started sailing down here with my father, and to have my three little boys down here with me was really awesome.
Oh, it's been great. My team's here to have fun and race, and for us to come out and podium on the 4th, it's a really high experience for us.
I agree with Ted Ryman. One big fun fest. I wouldn't mind being there right now.
Yes. Me too.
I think BVI, I think it's my favorite Caribbean island. I don't know. We got a lot of fun at Aruba and Curacao and Antigua, BVI, USVI. Great stuff.
Yeah.
This is how we should be promoting our sport, Julia.
Yes.
Social, camaraderie, fun ashore, fun afloat.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Beautiful
Absolutely.
stuff. Great video. Congrats to the BVI Spring Regatta, the organizers down there. And gets us to our regular segment with John Emmett, who is still in Hong Kong, the Coach's Corner with John Emmett, and he is on a power boat the bow of a powerboat, talking about how wonderfully diverse our sport is.
Yes, okay.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the Fosey. Still here in Hong Kong, and I'm going to be heading back, fairly soon. 100 days to the Gov Cup, and it just makes me think about the huge amount of diversity we have in sailing. So we have match racing, we have team racing, we have fleet racing, and we have all different parts of the sport. So foiling, I guess, is the cat that's been let out the bag, and obviously is not going back in there for all those traditionalists. We see that the boats are slowly being, I was going to say announced, but shown. Having said that, I think there's quite a lot of secrecy we have hidden in there with the foils covered, etc., etc. And I think you're not really going to know who's fastest until not only they've been on the water for the first time, but they've been on the water a few times. My hope for the America's Cup is just we have some really good racing. I think if one boat is clearly faster than the others, it's going to end up being not so exciting. But hopefully it's going to be a good race. And, you know, just the initial impression is the boats are looking pretty similar, which is, I think that's a good thing. And I think it's also nice to have these distractions in what's quite a difficult time when we look at everything that's going on in the world. And sport brings everyone together. The big one, of course, from my point of view, is the Olympics, and that clock is ticking ever closer. So still hoping that there'll be an opportunity to be involved directly. But in the meantime, wishing everybody who's doing the Last Chance Regatta, and that's very aptly named, the Last Chance Regatta, the very best of luck. So I've been here in Hong Kong with Lily for a holiday, although as you can probably see from the background, I'm never far from the water. Going to be back in Europe next week, so I hope to join you live then. But for now, sail fast, have fun, and see you soon.
Nicely done.
Nicely done. You see David James's comment. It's nice to see someone in Hong Kong who's not in prison. David, of course, who lived there for a while.
Yes.
Gordon Smith, I'm thinking that John could have made this a swimwear shoot. I was trying to remember, Julie, if we've ever seen him on a power boat before. We've seen him on a coach's boat, right?
Yeah.
He's been out bouncing around on a rubber boat on a rib and a coach's boat.
Yeah, but last time, wasn't it also on a power boat?
I think he was on a dock walking, and there were a lot of power boats in the background. I think his report from the other day when we did the Heebie-Jeebie Yacht Club.
Yes.
Cool club.
Yeah.
Okay, John, thank you for that. Now, Julia, look at this. I grabbed this off his Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this could have been a caption contest. This could have been correct or crutonic. But the point is, obviously, it's a storefront in Hong Kong. Fish and chick, is that a typo, or is that?
Oh, no.
Is that tongue in cheek on purpose, do you think?
No. I think they probably call chickens chicks.
Could be. Fish and chick as in chicken. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Alistair Murray says, that was me in the powerboat, Julia. What's that, Alistair? I thought in the powerboat,
yes, he's right.
Oh, I see. He was in the powerboat.
Right,
That's right. It was his. Well done.
Yes.
Well done. Yep, you guys, I forgot that myself.
How could I forget?
And it was Alistair who was driving up the river, I guess, or down the river.
Yeah.
And did his report, the AAAA.
Yeah.
Okay, fish and chick. You think that's fish and chicken?
Yep.
Not fish and chips and not a typo?
No.
Okay, well, it doesn't matter. John, it could be a caption. It could be a caption contest. It could be a caption contest. Julie.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, John. Thanks very much for your report. John Emmett Sailing. Get to the front of the fleet, along with Alistair and Ed Worley and a couple others, our regulars, contributors, and we appreciate very much. Claire Harrington just sent a photo. I'm not sure what that is. I'll have to take a look at that during the next video, Claire. But thank you for your contributions of late. And as I said, especially here to the desktop.
Yes.
And I've had to rearrange it. I don't know if Peter Stevenson's on yet. I'll send a note to him. We got to get our desktop, our Crutonic corner. That wooden thing. Remember, he made that for us.
Yeah, I remember.
Sent it up here with his sister. Okay, another Bravo Zulu. This now our main story today, the feature. the Balboa Yacht Club, the beautiful club down in Newport Beach, alongside, or not quite alongside, but just across the bay from Newport Harbor Yacht Club. But my favorite club probably in the world is Balboa Yacht Club, where we run the Governor's Cup every year. I've been an honorary member there now for, I don't know, a dozen years or so. Terrific facility. They keep improving the facility. The membership is robust. A lot of young members, a lot of boats, a huge junior program, 200 plus kids. And the home of the Governor's Cup, the 57th edition, will be this year, last week of July, and I'll be down there doing the TV again with Andy Rose and Matt Whitfield, Chris Bretschker, and our team of volunteers, of which we have something like 25 people on the Gov Cup TV team. We do it as volunteers. Other regattas, other clubs spend north of $100,000 to televise an event like the Governor's Cup. Not us. We buy the equipment, and that's from donations from members and people like Andy Rose and others who contributed money. And we have the equipment and we keep it year to year. We upgrade it a little bit by little bit. And indeed, the boats, the Gov Cup 22s, which is the latest generation of boats, which the members, through fundraising by Andy and others, have raised to have this beautiful fleet of boats for that historic trophy, which along with Congressional Cup and the America's Cup are probably the three, arguably, you could talk about Sewanaka Cup and one or two others, but three of the most historic and prestigious match racing trophies.
Remind everybody who the Governor's Cup.
Gov Cup was donated by then Governor Ronald Reagan of California.
And it's for?
And it's for the prestigious International Youth Match Racing Championship, which in the next lower third will be run 22nd to 27 July. Teams from all over the world are again coming to BYC to try to win this prestigious youth match racing regatta. We'll kick the week off with a welcome dinner on Monday, the 22nd. That's the dinner that is the Andy Rose hosts. It's really a roast, a gentle roasting of the teams. Right. And the kids, the first year they're there, kind of wide-eyed. Well, what are we doing up here on the stage in front of 200 or 300? I mean, it's a big crowd under the tent.
Right.
We televise it live. It's live streamed, and by the second year, they're back with some reposts. They're clever, chiming in, and by the third year, they may really get Andy. Good,
and they have several times.
And they try to. So it's Ronald Reagan was then the governor before he was president and gave that trophy. And there are a bunch of other Governor's Cups in various sports. I don't know of any others in our sport, but there probably are. Jeffrey Peterson, our Fozy, who's been on this show any number of times, won last year, and that was his second win. He won in 2021 and again in 2023, so he will be trying for a three-peat. A bunch of other people have done it twice, have won it twice, including Andy Rose, but nobody's won it three times. So Jeffrey is going to be giving that a whirl this year, along with two other skippers of the 12 that have so far been announced. Remember, this is an invitational. They send in their resumes, and the committee starts selecting here in the early part of this year, and they have now announced that Jeffrey is back, as you would understand, as the defending champ. Mm-hmm. Cole Tapper from Australia is back. And he was in the finals against Jeffrey last year as a terrific sailor, arguably the best match racer down under these days. And Liam O'Keefe, who is also an American, they have committed to and been selected by the Governor's Cup committee. Those invitations have been issued, and they have accepted. Peterson, who is also the 2022 Youth Match Racing World Champion, will attempt to make a Gov Cup history with a third win, and surpass the two-win total of 12 fellow skippers in the Cup's 57 years. He has his work cut out for him, though, because as both Tapper and the aforementioned O'Keefe have beaten him in the last year in the 2023 Worlds and the Intercollegiate Championship, respectively. This O'Keefe kid has really come on strong. Mm-hmm. When asked how he and his team dealt with the pressure, quote from Jeffrey, "We make it our goal not to put any weight on prior wins or losses, and treat every year as if it were our first year racing the event. We know we have a tough target on our back. We have a target on our back, or perhaps two targets, but we welcome it and look forward to getting in that first pre-start and letting our sailing do the talking. Now, you might think that's something that Susan Kenny or one of the other PR people, Andy, somebody wrote for him. That's Jeffrey coming out of his mouth, as you know, Julia, with a quote like that. And we've had him on the show. He is so articulate and so bright. He's going to work on Wall Street this summer.
Is he?
He's got an internship. He's in school at Georgetown University in Washington. And that's going to cut into his yacht racing, because Gulf Cup's about his only break, from what I hear, for being able to do yacht racing, for doing that internship on Wall Street. So that's Jeffrey, the two-time winner, and this is the final last year against Cole Tapper. Tapper was the 2023 Australian Youth Match Racing champion. He's currently the premier youth match racer in the Southern Hemisphere, with a runner-up finish in both the 2023 Gulf Cup and the 2023 Worlds. He is looking forward to having yet another rematch with Peterson, and that went all the way last year. It was a hell of a series.
It was.
We enjoyed televising that. You can see the conditions. It was kind of lightish that afternoon and got lighter as the series went on, and it was back and forth. It was terrific. Now, so much for those two. Now we've got this Liam O'Keefe. Now, this is a photo from a guy called Bruce Durkee, whom I've not met, but I know of him, good photographer, who took this during the Intercollegiate Match Racing Championship. And this is the winning team. Liam is at Brown University, Julia. And his crew there apparently is coming with him to Gulf Cup. Guthrie Braun, left to right. O'Keefe there standing with the main sheet in his left hand. Cam Spriggs, and then Carly Costakian, I hope I pronounced that right, on the bow. And I understand they are coming to sail at Gulf Cup. They're going to sail 4 up with Liam on the helm. Now, O'Keefe is less experienced in match racing than either Tapper or Peterson, but could not have had a better start to his match racing career than the intercollegiate result, where, in addition to Peterson, he also beat our other hometown favorite down there, Morgan Pinckney of Newport Harbor Yacht Club, the 2022 winner of the U.S. Youth Match Racing Championship for the Rose Cup, and he was third last year in the Gulf Cup. When O'Keefe was asked how he achieved that feat, he said, quote, "It was much closer than it seemed, with shifty conditions current, and there was a lot of luck involved." So he's also sounds like modest and humble, unlike one other sailor who went to Brown University, who was not so humble and not so modest and not so quiet. He was known as the mouth. He's still alive. The 1977 America's Cup winner, known as the Mouth of the South.
Oh, yes, Ted Turner.
Ted Turner, who was excused
Was he?
from further participation at Brown University. For a panty raid. The rumor is, I don't know, Julia, for sure, but the word was that Ted Turner was involved in one of these panty. Well, I guess that's kind of the thing. You were probably involved in those too at Stanford, panty raids.
Oh, they came.
Fending them off.
No, I'm older than that.
Oh, you are.
They did in fact happen, but later.
Oh, well, apparently Ted Turner was excused for whatever reason. That's the urban lore anyway. So O'Keefe is terrific. He's going to be back. I hope Morgan Pinckney is back. I haven't heard, because today is the closing of this period of requests for invitations. You send in your resume. And long since, these top 3 kids that have been chosen long ago sent in their resume. The committee's already announced they've been selected. And today is the close for the remaining requests for invitations to be submitted. And in due course, probably in the next week or so, the committee down there at Balboa Yacht Club will select the remaining 9 skippers. Now, just to go on some more about O'Keefe, he also shares the passion for match racing that all the top skippers seem to have, despite a great dinghy career in fleet and team racing. And as a star on the Brown University team, O'Keefe said that he would now rank match racing as his favorite discipline, with team and fleet racing a ways behind, and in that order. As he said, quote, "The last 30 seconds of a match race start are the most intense and thrilling moments in sailing for me."
Interesting.
Nice stuff, eh?
Yeah.
And I don't know the kid. I want to meet him.
Oh, we will.
And I'm looking forward to it. So that's the quote from him. And that is our first report on the Governor's Cup coming up here at the end of July, 22 to 27 July, the 57th Annual Governor's Cup, the prestigious International Youth Match Racing Championship hosted each year by Balboa Yacht Club. And as I said, Julia, Gov Cup TV will be back in force with our volunteer team.
Yeah.
On the water, commentary on the water, not in a sound booth in London or in a sound booth back at the yacht club.
And you almost pioneered drone footage.
Well, Chris Bretschker, who is our producer and director, really got the drone stuff going at about the same time a lot of others do. And last year we had 2 drones up, and they cycled the drone. So one is up there, and the batteries start to run low. That one comes back, and then another one goes up. So not only do we have 1 drone in the air, we've got 1 ready to go, and sometimes 2 in the air too. But we've also got now what we call it what do we call it? It's like a sideline reporter, and what we do is have a senior serious young sailor in a powerboat with a camera, and getting the technology to make all that happen out on the water
yeah,
is a bit of a stretch. But Chris Bretschker and his team have done that. And the audio-visual sync is synced up perfectly, and we can hear them, and we can talk to them from the commentary boat, from the TV boat. And it's like having a sideline reporter who can hop on and interview somebody, who can also give us an up-close and personal when they're a mile up the course at the windward mark, or sometimes more. And it's really, really good. We've had we call them the roving boat or something, but it's another commentary position. We've had Tommy Spithill, Jimmy Spithill's brother, who comes up from Australia.
Yep.
And he's been doing it the last couple of years. He did it last year for us, and he is fabulous. As are a couple of the others. We have a couple of current and former winners, or recent winners, at Balboa Yacht Club, who've also pitched in to help.
It's amazing how different it is having somebody who really knows and has done it to explain what happened.
For sure.
It's so different than the guy from New York who's never been on.
And these, that's for sure. But the kids too have all gotten, with television, with YouTube, with TikTok, these things. The kids are all gotten so good, so media savvy, and so on. And frankly, getting Jeffrey Peterson, if or some of the others, when they get eliminated, and hopefully he won't, but if he does, Morgan Pinckney, come on with us, they're better commentators than we are at this point.
Of course.
Certainly as good. Okay, they can't do some of the flesh and, fleshing the whole thing out, and some of the... A panty raid was an American college prank of the 40s and 50s and the 60s, in which groups of male students would attempt to invade the living quarters of female students and steal their panties as trophies. The term dates back to February 1949, according to our panty raid historian, James Frederick Bland.
Lovely.
It ended with co-ed dorms. That's an interesting point. I was in a co-ed dorm.
Yeah, but you were one of early.
We were one of the very early. We were I think the second, or maybe tied for first, but we were among the first 2 co-ed dorms on the University of Michigan campus. And we even had co-ed bathrooms. You wrap a towel around yourself and shave in the mirror, if you did shave. And
if you're old enough to shave.
Well, I was. I've been shaving since I was bloody 14. I hate shaving. That's why I only shave on Tuesdays and Fridays now. Only. No, I do, and you hate it. But, co-ed dorms and bathrooms, everyone was cohabitating anyway. My then girlfriend, now wife, was in the dorm room. I had a single room, too. How was that? What else? Steve Gruber, does anyone here know of a drone that has more than 20 minutes battery life? Boy, there are some. Look at what's about to happen. Not to bring up Israel and Iran again, but what's about to happen is probably drone warfare.
Yeah.
It's going to be missiles. But look at the poor Ukrainians. Russia just knocked out their biggest power station.
Right.
And now they don't have any power in the northern or eastern part of Ukraine? Bloody hell. And this is going to be a drone war. There's going to be drone attacks and missile attacks, and those drones can last more than. Of course, they're not drones as much as they are something unmanned aerial somethings, whatever they're called. Somebody will know that. Interesting report. Thank you. I would say team racing is more interesting at times. Yeah, I agree. Could be. Look at that. Fishbeck is in Bora Bora.
Oh, good for him.
David James, I agree. Team racing can be interesting. The problem is team racing is not nearly as televisable. It's hard for the sailors to understand what's going on, let alone the commentators and the camera ops, and if you're watching it on two. Whereas match racing, one boat against one boat, is still the best televisable aspect, I believe, of our sport.
Claire Harrington said he rolled a bowling down the tunnel. What was that about?
She's talking about Ted Turner. He rolled a bowling ball down one of the tunnels on campus. Oh, I think you've cleaned that up for us, Commodore. That's Vice Commodore Claire Harrington. Yeah, Speedo swim trunks that are a tight fit. They're a bit like a man thermometer. What? Size matters. I don't know. There's stuff going on up there. I'm not sure I want to read more about it.
I think we can not do that.
Hamish Ross, see his comment up there? It's up above now in the displayed comments. He said, "Tear down this wall," quote unquote. He knows that was Ronald Reagan at the Brandenburg Gate, right?
Right.
The Berlin Wall. What year was that? He was governor. He was president in the 80s. So from 80 to 88. So
I was going to say 80s.
Must have been the early 80s, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Yeah. That was after he was governor of California, and after he gave, at the request of Balboa Yacht Club, he donated the Governor's Cup, and it is the most. I'm going to go out on the limb and say it is the most prestigious international youth match racing championship tournament. And certainly the granddaddy or grandmammy of them all. It was started a couple years after Congressional Cup, because Long Beach Yacht Club just up the coast said, well, we'll have the Congressional Cup, and the people at Balboa Yacht Club said, well, we'll have a junior Congressional Cup, which is really what it is and has become. And of course,
it's a great place to sail. Easy place to sail.
It is, exactly. It's not sailed in the bay. People ask, why don't you sail it in the bay? Because you could just then watch it off the docks. But there's too much action in the bay. There's pleasure boats going in and out, fishing boats, commercial traffic, and so on. And it's not at 10 o'clock in the morning, the race committee lines all the boats up, and the ducklings all go off the dock. They have this down to a science. They tow the 12 boats out to the race course. It takes a half an hour or so to tow out around in the Pacific Ocean. You got wide open. And then they can also move the course to where there's wind. If it's a light air day, sometimes there's more breeze up to the west, which looks like north to us, but the coast is going east-west there. So it's to the west. Great stuff. I'm looking forward to it. You can tell I'm excited about it. UAVs. Thank you, James Frederick Bland, a graduate of our Naval Academy. Unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, Clark Chapin. Thank you.
Oh, that's good.
Reagan's quote was 87, Clark is telling us.
Thank you, Clark.
The Gov Cup should be automatic qualifier for Congo Cup. Well, yeah, maybe. Hello, Timothy Rossi. I hope Timothy Rossi is going to be there.
Uh-huh.
We'll see. He's been there in the past. I don't think he's aged out. I hope not. He's a hell of a good match racer from France. David James, I was the live commentator for a team race last year. It was very difficult for even the most expert sailor to know what the fudge was going on. Mm-hmm. Julie Aarons is still climbing the mountains in New Hampshire. And that, I guess, takes us to the end of our Gov Cup report, and we're looking forward to that. But by the way, that's the start of our Road to the Governor's Cup series. Remember, we try to at least, and last year we managed to interview each of the 12 skippers. We did Jeffrey, who was as the defending champ or previous champ. We did him literally on the Tuesday during the regatta. He was one we couldn't get to because he was all over Europe last summer. But we'll start getting these kids on the air, and Andy and I, or some combination of us, will interview the skippers and bring them to you because they are cool people. Looking forward to that. Mm-hmm. Julia, what happened on this day in history? Speaking of launching, the Governor's Cup, road to the Gov Cup. What happened on this day in history on the 12th of April, 1961?
Oh my goodness.
61. It was a launch.
Oh.
Here's your first clue.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, it did not launch at an angle like that. That's the rocket is being stood up.
Yeah.
If that's the right expression. I'm sure it's not.
Mm-hmm. Well,
That Baikonur in Russia.
Sputnik?
No.
Oh, it's 61. No, that was 57.
12th of April, 1961. Vostok 1.
Uh-huh.
Even the Fozy didn't get that. At least they were still Googling it when I put the answer up here. Vostok 1 was the first space flight of the Vostok program and the first human orbital space flight in history. The Vostok 3KA space capsule was launched from Baikonur Cosmodrome. I've been to Star City. I'm one of the few Westies that's been to Star City. They thought I was German. They let me in. Baikonur Cosmodrome, I'll tell you that story sometime, on the 12th of April, 1961, with Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin aboard, making him the first human to reach orbital velocity around the Earth and to complete a full orbit. Was he, Stingray asked, the first Russian-speaking monkey. They fired off a few monkeys before they, but even at the time he went up, they'd had the last two in a row had worked. And they said, okay, we're going to put a human in it now. But up until that point, half of them failed.
Yeah.
So he was, and they had two people. I read a lot about this because I love space and I love this whole epoch, this period. But they had two, Yuri Gagarin and somebody else, who they didn't know which they were going to choose. And literally the night before they launched, they put sensors under the beds of both of them to see who slept better. Ah. And neither of them slept, but they didn't have the modern, they didn't have an Apple Watch or something to check it. They were just checking to see how the bed moved around. And every time somebody came to check on him, he said he was just, pretended to be asleep, faked it, but he was awake all night. He said, I couldn't, But his heart rate on launch was said to be only 60 something.
Oh, well, that's good.
Beats per minute.
Wow.
So he was calm and collected when he took off, and here is a video about all of that.
On the 12th of April, 1961, the Soviet Union made history when they sent the first man into space. Outside of the mission, very few people knew that the launch was happening, not even cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin's own family. But how did Yuri Gagarin become the first man in space? Firstly, the Vostok rocket that would take Gagarin into orbit was derived from a Cold War ballistic missile, adapted with a small capsule for a person to sit in. That small capsule would only fit one person. They would need to choose their cosmonaut carefully. The selection was made just days before the launch, with Yuri Gagarin as the top choice and German Titov as the second. The night before the launch, Gagarin and Titov slept on mattresses with strain gauges that would measure how restful their sleep was. Only later would Gagarin admit that he had not slept at all, nor had Titov. Neither of them had known about the hidden strain gauges, but every time someone had come into the room, Gagarin had concentrated hard on lying absolutely still. The morning arrived. They played music in the capsule as last-minute adjustments were made. And finally, they were ready to launch. Vostok 1 orbited the Earth in 108 minutes. And luckily, the capsule was able to descend successfully. Gagarin ejected from the capsule and parachuted down into a potato field miles off target. I thought it was a monster, not a person. He stretched his arms out and was approaching us. Then he asked, Do you have any idea where I can get to a phone? Over the next few days, Yuri Gagarin became a household name and a hero in Russia. And that's how Yuri Gagarin became the first man to go to space. Like and subscribe for more educational content and activities.
So, J. Frederick Bland Boomer, he always wondered about the landing on hard ground versus ocean splashdowns. Apparently, and the whole system was designed that when he got down to, I don't know, 3,000 feet, something like that, so he was still a mile up in the air, he got ejected. Some kind of a rocket seat ejected him out of the capsule.
And it came down in a parachute.
And then he parachuted down, the parachute opened, and when he got down there, some lady and her kid saw him and thought he was a monster from who knows where. He had a parachute and he had,
Mm-hmm.
Only 58 years after the first powered flight. Yeah, that's pretty amazing, Gordon Smith. Good point. And of course, that happened in, what year was that? 64? Yeah, 64. So this is Gagarin. They actually had some TV from the capsule to ground control, and of course they debated whether to tell anybody. They had a big argument with the Central Committee, the Communist Party, because if it failed, they didn't want anybody to know that it had failed. So they didn't even tell his wife and family until during the flight. Whoever was the flight director finally convinced them and said, look, we got to tell everybody. If it fails, it fails. And if it succeeds, will be a big deal.
Yeah.
And they did finally then go public during the flight. Surprised the hell out of everybody. And there he is on the left, 61. On this day in history, the 12th of April, 1961, the first human to complete a full orbit around Earth. And I just, to finish up on the story of, when I was doing Formula One in the late 90s, the Russians, were they Russians or Soviet? They were Russians then. Their space program was, they didn't have any money. Their economy was in the toilet and they were falling apart, but they wanted to give rides to people. They were trying to commercialize the whole thing. So we thought it'd be a great promotional idea to send Mika Hakkinen, our world champion driver. This was in 98, I guess. Our Finnish world champion, little guy, very fit, nice guy, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Mika, blonde. And we thought he'd be great if we sent him over and tried to get him on the,
And he didn't think that was such a great idea.
No, he wanted to do it. He was all enthused. He thought that was a great idea. Well, for technical, and the insurance companies wouldn't, here's the current F1 world champion. Insurance companies wouldn't insure it. So we did convince the Russians and Mika and the insurance companies to let us put him in one of these parabolic flights and do a weightless thing and film it all.
Mm-hmm.
And did I go on that flight? No, one of my lieutenants did. I didn't want to go in it.
Mm-hmm.
But as a result of that, we went out to Star City, outside of Moscow.
Yeah.
And they thought I was German because I was working for a German company.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd come into the country with my American passport, but I had a German green card. I was a Geschäftsführer of a German company.
Right.
And they didn't have any difference. Of course, I didn't speak German very well either, but I got to go to Star City.
During this whole time, from 60 to 68, but I was working for Stanford Alumni Association, and General Flickinger was on the board at the time, and General Flickinger was the doctor in charge of all space
for the USA.
For the USA. And we heard and saw a lot during that time.
I'll bet you did. Well, I remember. It's one of the, people my age remember the Kennedy assassination maybe as the first big deal in '63. But I remember this. I maybe remember, Sputnik was what, 58, 59?
Yeah.
I don't think I remember Sputnik. I think that's a reconstructed memory. I don't, but this I remember.
I was 57 and I was in a journalism class, and it had happened that day.
Lean left, Julie. You're getting out. There you go. You're getting out of frame.
Sorry, and I can remember the professor saying, "You will remember this day," because it was the first time anybody had gone into space.
Well, you're right. Vostok 1 was Gagarin's only space flight, but he served as the backup crew to Soyuz 1, which ended in a fatal crash, killing his friend and fellow cosmonaut Vladimir Komarov. Fearful that a high-level national hero might be killed, Soviet officials banned Gagarin from participating in further space flights. Thank you for that, Boomer Bland. Ted Ryman said he was at Cape Canaveral in 1980. That's pretty good. Okay, so that's what happened today, this day in history, the 12th of April, 1961, and a couple of recollections from Julia and myself from way back in the day. Okay, let's talk about this reveal. It was a big deal. I'm impressed, and really am. And Richard Gladwell pinged me this morning. He said, the only thing you ought to know is that they did it all in a day.
Yeah.
And I'm going to quote Richard's write-up on it extensively here. But as we told you on Tuesday's show, this glittering, star-studded reveal of the Swiss boat 1 in in Barcelona, was a big deal. And we really, I'll take the title off. Let me back that up. And just, those were people, they're acrobats. They're hung from whatever was holding the lights up above it to make it look like a sail over the boat. Only Red Bull would think of something like that. Yeah. Ask John Sangmeister sometime to tell you about Red Bull and that Red Bull, what's that thing where they fly people off the end of a ramp and everybody makes their own deal and into the water?
Yeah.
And he sponsored that once or twice down there in Long Beach to great success. I mean, and I think they're going to do that again. I hope they are. But Red Bull has done great promotion. I'm not sure the product is good for you, but that's another issue. The star-studded reveal we told you about in Barcelona of Alinghi Red Bull Racing on Tuesday night. Well, not very many days later, meaning today, Friday, in Auckland, the boat got rolled out of the shed. That is B3, Team New Zealand, revealed the first images of America's Cup boat ahead of the official launch. And I woke up to see this. And is it normal to launch before christening a yacht? Stingray is asking. Well, you can do. These days, I think people they're not too superstitious about that kind of stuff. But they did roll the boat out. We have a couple other views of it. And it looks, my first impression was, wow, that looks a lot like Alinghi's boat, at least forward. And as we got another look at the back end, it also looks a bit like the Alinghi boat, not a bit, more than a bit like the Alinghi boat in the back end too. We'll show you that in a moment with some commentary from Richard, but have a look at the official video that they released this morning.
Today's a really important day for the team. It's been quite a few years to get to this point, and a huge amount of work from the design team, the build team, and also the shore team over the last 4 or 5 weeks for the fit out. Seeing it finally roll out of the shed and put the rig on, that's a major step forward. So it's really exciting. It's a good moment for the team, and it sort of signals the start of the final phase, really.
It's amazing to see all the team getting to enjoy this milestone, and it's been a huge amount of work for so many people over such a long period of time to get the boat looking this cool and in the water. So, yeah, exciting day.
Okay, short video, nice video. Kevin Shoebridge, who's the COO, really running the team this time around. They're at the top of that video. And there's the bow. That is from another Fosey. That's from Margarita Bottini Marshall, who sent that picture along. Thank you, I don't know where she found it. Maybe it's a Richard Gladwell photo or a team photo even. But look at that bow. Design solutions converging on the hull. The foils will probably tell the tale. Well, the foils are long and flat, but I don't know that they are anything more than a decoy at this point. And after you get a good look there at the bow, I will now show you a video from our friends at Airflow New Zealand, who was out and about taking the video of the boat and the launch. And here that is. No audio with it. The first outing for their new AC-75 as it got rolled out. But have a look at those long foils. And again, I wouldn't I wouldn't think you're going to see those get used, but maybe. They got used yesterday or today. It's Friday.
And they took to the water.
They took to the water, and exactly, Julia, and successfully.
Dry.
And had a dry tack. First one out of the box. In any event, this is, look at how slim down the transom is. There's no backstays on the boats this time. They've been, under the class rule, prohibited. They really weren't necessary. Remember, they were trying to tie them up alongside the mast last time.
Yeah.
So just some good footage, aside from the recon footage that gets sent out. Over the fence, look at the boat by our friends at Airflow New Zealand. There's a good look at the foils.
Oh, gosh, they're big.
They are big. Wide wingspan and very flat, very little, if any, dihedral, angled down.
And there was some comment.
Look, excuse me, look, oops, I missed it. That bow is sharp bow. Sir, you were saying?
The reason they are so even is because they can control the
Well, they're trying to get the boat launched in light air, and this treatment forward, both on a Lingy and this boat, are no doubt to help get the boat launched in light air and pierce the seas. That is a wave-piercing bow if we ever saw one.
Yeah.
And you see that little step in the 4 foot up there in the bow, the chine, you might call it, and it was called, that's what Lingy was called.
Oh, yeah.
So this video goes on for another 2.5 minutes. I'll let it roll here if you want to see it. Hamish is saying, hull mission, get out of the water early as possible, then aerodynamic. Exactly right.
Yeah.
And it's got that big-ass skeg, excuse my language, all the way to the back. Again, a big skeg.
Well, it probably gives it a better balance.
Well, we'll see if this boat, I think you're going to see it sailing bow down. That's been the plan form, bow down on all these boats.
Yeah.
It gets the angle. It reduces the windage of the hull by getting the whole hull bow down. That's the word I'm getting. You want to watch this? Keep watching this as they splash the boat. There's no sailing footage in this video, but I can tell you as a member of these teams over the many years, this is a big moment. It's a lot of pride, a great feel of joy and relief to see your work. And these people have been busting their picks, no doubt, morning, noon, and night. I don't have any photos, Claire, of the deck. Vice Commodore Harrington is asking about the deck. I hear from Richard Gladwell, and he will do some spying and take some spy photos of the deck, and particularly the cockpits aft. But again, this boat, like a Lingy, has got room in the cockpits, not for everybody, but only for half the crew, 4 a side, so they're not planning to change sides. The world's biggest bike seat, Hamish is saying. That's about the best view, Claire, that we get of the deck. Yeah, the rudder is tiny. Well, they want to reduce windage, and it's got the T-foil, of course, on the bottom. Of course. There's another shot of the bow. "30 seconds left in the vid, so let's let it run.
Yep.
We've seen it this far. Nobody there. I was interested to see how few people there are over there on the other side watching.
No, well, I'm sure it wasn't announced, was it?
No, but still, people tend to come out of the woodwork for things like this, especially in New Zealand. But maybe they've lost interest in the Cup too. I don't know, or maybe they were all around. They could see from either side of the base.
Yeah.
Airflow, youtube.com/airflownz, and it's a travel company, and this guy did great work during the last Cup, and we appreciate very much his video as well. Sail trim to steer the boat on the foils. Well, maybe. Looks like the cyclers, yeah, the rig is quite a bit further aft than we've seen too. I don't know how far aft relative to their competition, Alinghi, but apparently the rig's further aft than their B1 and B2 during the last Cup. Okay, let's see what what Richard Gladwell has to say. This is a shot, first of all, of them sailing, obviously, after splashing the boat, and no big extended, they probably did some, but dockside load testing, they must have done that on the hard up in the shed. And when they got the rig in, but then they went sailing. And bravo Zulu, I mean, that's impressive. Richard writes, Emirates Team New Zealand's new AC-75 moved from first splash to first foiling tack in Auckland on Friday. The accelerated sequence is the first time that the team has launched for the first time and sailed on the same day. Normally in a foiling America's Cupper, normally in the IACC and the even 12s, there is at least a tow test to check that foils and hydraulics are working, and to load the boat up dockside and listen for cracks and growls and groans, but not in this case, as I editorialized there, obviously. Quite why the Kiwis moved through the test sequence so rapidly is not clear, Richard writes, but regardless, they have the distinction of being the first to sail an AC-75 race boat in the cycle of the 37th America's Cup. As far as we know, Alinghi has not yet sailed. They also achieved their usual benchmark in a new foiling boat where their first tack is a dry one. They did strike a very convenient weather window after Auckland was lashed with an equinoxial, is that a word?
I don't know.
Richard, what's that mean? Equinoxial gale, I guess this time of year.
Yep.
Causing serious flooding in many parts of New Zealand and the delay of the start of the Three Kings race, which is going on now. I learned a new word too, Clark Chapin. Equinoxial gale.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's understandable.
So there's another on-the-water shot. I think this is a Richard Gladwell shot. There were also a couple of shots from a gentleman who was shooting for AC-37. There's the so-called recon team. And that's obviously not foil-borne, but nonetheless, interesting shot, I thought. Mm-hmm. And now they're coming back to the team base. Beautiful shot, really. That is, I think, a Gladwell shot.
He's done so well with his photography.
He is a good photographer and writer, both.
And he knows what he's looking for, which is part of it.
And a good judge and a good sailor.
Yeah.
And a good commentator. Prior to today's launch, he writes, there's the bow-on shot. Again, I think this may be a launch shot, but they may also be hauling out. Prior to today's launch, Te Rehutai, which was their previous boat, B2, has undergone radical surgery to explore some options afforded by version 2, the current version of the AC-75 class rule. As expected and seen in Alinghi Red Bull Racing's new AC-75, the Kiwi design team have gone for a slimline hull to improve the aerodynamic characteristics around the bow while staying within the required minimum volume required by the class rule. You remember we talked about that apropos Alinghi. Mm. The low bow and shearline then leads in a very aerodynamic way into the crew pits, the cockpits, of which there are 4 persons per side, and there is obviously no intention for the sailing crew to run across the cockpit between tacks, according to Richard.
That's smart.
And which makes, it's what we saw Luna Rossa Pirelli doing last time, of course. The plowshare bow, first seen on Te Rehutai, remains, but in a more subtle form and will come into play to avert a serious nosedive after a flight control error or malfunction. Mm-hmm. The entry of the canoe body at the forefoot does have an initial fullness to provide additional buoyancy in the bow, useful to help the bow quickly clear any contact with the awkward, there's an interesting word, the awkward, some might have said croutonic, Barcelona sea state.
Mm-hmm. Well done, yeah.
And we'll go back to Gordon Smith's comment in a moment. Now look at the back end. I almost called it the ass end, Julie, but I knew you would have shaken your finger
Enough,
at me.
yeah.
Enough. Richard says the most striking feature of the AC-75 is her stern treatment where the beam does not appear to be carried right into the aft end of the canoe body.
Mm-hmm.
See that?
Yeah.
And in a step back into the more traditional days of yacht design, the AC-75 has pinched water lines in her afterbody.
Mm-hmm.
While unusual, it is clearly a move to reduce hull drag at the higher end of the wind range when they're heeled over a bit, even if they're foiling. I mean, heeled over aerodynamically.
Yeah.
The previous design theory shared by several design teams was that the hull would ride on its leeward chine and centerline bustle, presenting, meaning to the water, like a pair of catamaran hulls with lower drag before lifting onto the foils. The flat section is still there at the aft end of the Kiwi boat. It is just not as wide.
Mm-hmm. That helps.
So maybe they think they're going to get up before. Our guess is that the computer simulations in this cycle, feeding off plenty of good AC-75 performance data, have shown that it is better to let the foils do the heavy lifting. I suspect that's true, as opposed to the hull. Okay, that's our Fozy Richard Gladwell writing on today. I commend the article to you. I mean, you should have Sail World on your regular watch list. Anyway, I know you do, Julia, because Richard does such a good job, and especially at this stage in the Cup. There's nobody who will get more right, and he writes
plain language.
Plain language, but long stuff. He writes a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he does.
He is, some would say verbose. I would say
complete.
He is, well, he's complete. He is. That is a big change in the treatment of the stern, Alistair Murray is saying. Yep, indeed. Let me go back up to Clark Chapin saying equinoxial gale. Somebody Google that, would you, and see what kind of a word that is. I guess he means a gale that comes frequently during the equinoxes.
Right.
Interesting that the trimmers are sitting in front of the skippers. In front of the skippers. You surprised by that?
Yeah.
Jody? Baton Rouge is saying, and by the way, Baton Rouge, way above in the comments, said that we've got Charleston Race Week coming up, which we will always cover. We'll cover again this year. Look at how much real estate is used for the foil arm mechanics. Yes, good point. Gordon Smith saying, Tom, you were right. There's no way that ETNZ can defend the AC away from home waters. Their venture to Barcelona is clearly going to be an error. Interesting you say that, Gordon, because I got a ping this morning from a senior Sirius America's Cup observer and former winner. And Julia, he said, Cup's over, ETNZ are way ahead of Alinghi and everybody else. Boat's amazing.
Yeah.
Crew is probably not the correct term in light of the fact that they just cycle. Yeah, most of them do. The stern beam, Steve Gruber is right, the stern beam, the width, is nothing like Alinghi, indeed. Looks like an RC-44 transom, Baton Rouge is observing. Not catamaran, Graham Sweeney is saying more like a tunneled hull scow. Good, good, good.
Whatever that is.
Yeah. Well, a tunnel hull scow is, that's a boat that has, it's shaped like this, like the old Moths used to be back in the 60s and 70s. That actually isn't quite a catamaran, but it's a monohull that will go up on the two sides of the hull, and it's really technically a tunnel hull scow rather than a catamaran. I guess it's very similar.
Yeah.
Clark is saying Wikipedia says equinoxial is an obsolete form of now we know why. Of course we know. Equinoctial.
Sure.
Equinoxial. Octial. Maybe it's not obsolete down in those latitudes. Richard writes very informative articles, Julie Aarons, saying, I agree. I see these boats and am reminded of Manfred Curry's research with sailboats back in the day. Malgus 20 Hobie had a tunnel, yes, indeed, had a tunnel hull too. I'll tell you, the boats are ugly. I don't care what you think of them and the technology. They are, it looks like somebody, Julia, beat them with an ugly stick. And people were critical of the IOR back in the Mark kind of 2 or 3 days when there were bumps and bustles and measurement bumps. And these boats are fugly. I'm sorry. Gordon Smith says, I think that ETNZ knew exactly what they were doing when they negotiated this edition of the class rule. I'm sure he's right. Okay, so there you have it. In case there's any other comments, you can't fix ugly. Boomer Bland. As the boat's being washed off after a first very successful sail. These guys are good. They've got Maybe and Peter Burling rather, and Blair Tuke and co. They maybe have the best sailing team going. A face a mother could only love. Oh dear. Oh dear. Julio, any last thoughts before we leave that one?
No, lots to think about in that, to watch for anyway, in that.
See, Gordon Smith thinks these boats are very attractive, each to their own. I'll give you that, Gordon. I'll give you that. Okay, thanks again to Richard Gladwell. Thanks to AC37 and to ETNZ for putting that all out there. Niley Williamson, boy, she comes right out and says it, lipstick on a pig. Well, boat probably is pretty damn fast. PDQ, pretty damn quick. Julie Aarons, of course, thinks they're not ugly. She probably thinks anything that Grant Dalton, Julie Aarons, anything Grant Dalton's got a hand in, you probably think is correct.
She's allowed.
She is. Beauty is in the eye of the beer holder.
Oh, Alistair, how lovely.
Alistair Murray comes to the rescue of this segment.
Yes,
Fast
yes.
but ugly. You will see. Okay. We're only an hour and 22 minutes in, Julie. We've
Good heavens.
hardly dropped any frames. This is technically looks good. I've enjoyed putting the show together. I hope you're enjoying seeing it. As we get to the last leg, and we have to talk about the Olympics. John Emmett talked about it in his opening segment. The final places are on the line at what they're calling the Last Chance Regatta. So we'll wrap up the show with this. After 7 months of competition around the world, qualification for the Paris 2024 Olympic Games, the sailing, of course, in Marseille, is almost complete. Thank you, Niley Williamson. He is a man, not a woman. Thank you for that. Sorry. Mm-hmm. There are 260 athlete places in 199 boats already qualified for the Games, but before this chapter comes to a close, there is one more qualifier still to come, and that's in about 9 days, where the final quota places will be decided. The Last Chance Regatta, held during the 55th edition of the French Olympic Week, taking place from 20 to 27 April in Hyères in France. As it says, it's the last chance. There will be 66 additional athlete places across 49 boats at the Olympic Games, up for grabs across all 10 events. And here, Julio, is a brief video produced by World Sailing. Don't miss it. There's the regatta coming up. There are 7 spots available in the men's and women's windsurfing and the IQ foil, and 5 for men's and women's kites, and with 4 in the 470 for the mixed dinghy and 4 in each of the men's dinghy in the Ilka 7. And women's dinghy, okay, let's start. And 4 in each of the men's dinghy in the Ilka 7 and the women's dinghy in the Ilka 6, okay. 4 49ers in the men's skiff and 5 49er FXs in the women's skiff, and the 4 NACRA 17 mixed multi-hull. Now, those are fleets of approximately, they differ class to class, but call it 20 boats. A few more, I think, in the Ilkas than that. So that's facts and figures from Scuttlebutt last night. And just to put the U.S. and Canada in perspective, for Canada and the USA, they do not have an entry yet in the men's IQ foil. This is Canada. Women's IQ foil, men's kiteboard, men's Ilka 7, mixed 470, and mixed NACRA 17. That's Canada. The USA does not yet has not qualified in the men's IQ foil, the men's kiteboard, and the men's ILCA 7.
Mm-hmm.
And the chances of us qualifying in any of those classes, it's more likely, Julia, that one of us will be the next Queen or King of England. We're not doing very well in those classes and have not up till now. I mean, miracles could happen, but not likely. I think they're sleek. Grant has nothing to do with it. Okay. I apologize again to Niley Williamson. I got to get to know Niley. That's cool to know. And Stingray points out that the Luna Rosa reveal, as we've said in previous shows, is tomorrow, the 13th, in Cagliari, down there in the southeastern corner of Sardinia, where their team base is located. And we will be watching this Last Chance Regatta coming up here. And as I said, in about 9 days, it's the 20th through the 27th. So call it 8 days. Olympic Sailing Week Hyères, the Last Chance Regatta in Hyères in France. That gets us to the D block and whiskey. I don't know why I laugh. This guy makes me laugh every time. And we only have one, Julia. People were lame this week. Maybe they're tired. Maybe they wanted to hear about this other stuff. But we only have one. And this from Ed Worley. And I thought it applied pretty well. It covered the waterfront. The secret to being happy is having a great sense of humor. And a dirty mind. Do you agree?
Oh, yes.
You don't need to shake your finger at Ed for that?
No.
I mean, we're not dirty. We just like a good, what's the word, not dirty?
Risque.
A risque. We just like the odd risque joke or two. Luca Craig, thank you. Mozzie Sales, Tom Morris in the UK has posted on his YouTube. Go look at it. YouTube posted an hour ago his thoughts on the ETNZ boat. We're going to get him on here, yeah. And I think Jody Shields is giving a big amen to that. The secret to being happy is having a great sense of humor and a dirty mind. I'll tell you, the secret to being happy is if this guy were fired, the sooner. How was that for a segue, Julia?
Whee!
The non-sailing CEO has got to go. And with the help of one of our FOSI, I have a list of all the people who have quit since this guy got hired, the number of people that they have gone through, to say nothing of the CMO who just left, and either quit or been fired, but for the most part quit. And I'm not going to I'm not going to name names, but the comms director, the offshore director, the membership director, this is back a couple of years now, but after this guy got hired, the Olympic director, the original Olympic director, the marketing manager, the membership director, the community sailing director, the youth recreation director, more recently the marketing communications director, the partnership manager, the video content manager. And it's some combination of them not having the money to pay these people. It's people. I mean, how could you work there given what they've done and all the criticism they have rightfully taken for suing America One Racing? Not everybody agrees. John, it was great to have John on here the other day. Aussie, American John Bertrand, and his point of view. But I think his point of view is not so much don't sue America One, although I think he was pretty strongly in favor of that. But there are a precious few other people in the U.S. who thinks that lawsuit's a good idea. Get rid of the lawsuit, save the money, go settle this thing. This is like Ukraine and Russia. They got to settle that war and get back to supporting our Olympic sailors. In the meantime, get rid of this guy who, by the way, lives in New York State. He doesn't live in Rhode Island. He's not in the office all that often. He drives over. They pay him to drive over, pay his expenses. They pay him, put him up in a hotel there in Bristol, and he spends a day or two or three and maybe more in the office from time to time. Then he drives home. And how can you run it? When I was the executive director of this organization, okay, it was back in the 80s. I worked all day, every day. I lived a stone's throw. I could walk down to the office out on Goat Island, and not just me, but everybody. We were dedicated, committed to this thing, working with the volunteers with a small staff of 20, making this happen in a big way. We lived, eat, breathed, loved the sport, loved what we were doing. This guy is excuse me, Julia.
Well,
He's a carpetbagger. He's got to go. The sooner, the better. You are just naughty. Someone seems to be directing to the exit. Yeah, life is too serious to take life seriously, Jody Shields. Everybody can drink now. I've done my rant.
Oh,
The
good.
last slide of the show. Julia, he's got to go. The sooner, the better. And so does the leadership of that organization needs to be replaced in October, if not sooner. Julia, do you agree or not?
Something's got to happen. I mean, it can't go on as it is.
For sure not. Okay, that gets us, Julia, to your finish line, our finish line, and your favorite slide, which is...
Yes, this is a great opportunity to like, follow, or share.
And share. Do all three.
Yes.
And remember, if you're watching a replay, as many people do, comments are welcome, and even a replay, we leave them open because our viewers are not only supportive of us, but they are so well-behaved.
And 24 hours.
They never make personal attacks.
No.
They never engage in name-calling. And they never use coarse language, right?
Right.
And if they do, you go on and flick them immediately because we look at the comments because we're interested in the comments.
Right.
You know, more so than flicking people, but we will. One time. And I'll warn if it's somebody I know, if it's somebody who's good, I'll warn them and say, okay, that's your warning.
Yep.
And otherwise, it's one strike and you're out. Thank you, everybody, for supporting us. Thanks to our patrons, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. Thanks to all of you who sent, oops, there's a black box over my shoulder, Julia. Including Claire, Vice Commodore Claire Harrington, who sent in this premium beef jerky. She sent it in.
And we're not going to be allowed to eat them?
Do you want one now?
Only if you do, yeah.
Well, if I open this up, they're going to go bad.
They are.
So I thought we should keep this as a set piece, as a prop on our set, and we can always order some off Amazon, and then eat one bag or the other. And I've got our Bravo Zulu here from the Gillinghams too. I had to move that. I had to reorganize this thing and stick that down with double sticky tape. Life is too serious to take life seriously. It's too short, too. Gotta go. Thank you, Ken Saban. Thank you, Boomer Bland. Smacks of cronyism, absentee payroll. Cheers, everyone. Thanks to everybody for joining us. Thank you, Julia. Have a great weekend wherever in the world you are. Thanks also to those of you who gave us video, audio, and images for 2 days' show. Julia, final thought.
Final thought. Ever forward.
Ever forward. We'll be watching the news this weekend. I hope. No Americans. I hope nobody is hurt in what inevitably is going to be a hurtful.
Yeah.
Okay. See you on Tuesday, same time, same channel, to talk about our beloved sport. In the meantime, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now. Yes. Stingray reminds us, tune in tomorrow, live on YouTube. You can watch the launch of Luna Rosa. Should be fun.
Oh,
Thanks,
yes.
Stingray.
We don't...